Hello.
How are you?
Good, I'm good, thank you.
You also have the blurred background, or is it
No,
low?
it's actually a white wall.
Okay, okay. So welcome to the stage. We'll be happy to hear from you. And do you have a presentation?
Yes, I have a presentation and it should be visible now.
Yes, and so I leave the stage to you. You have 20 minutes.
Perfect.
Take your time. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And well, hello everyone. I'm Andreas Liebl. I'm one of the managing directors of an organization called UnternehmerTUM in Germany. And I want to introduce a little bit the German AI ecosystem and also explain a little bit about what we are doing at Applied AI. If you look at Germany, there are some public and private initiatives. Well, on the one hand, you have the German AI strategy from November 2018. You have the update on the German AI strategy from December 2020. But there are also quite some numerous AI strategy at the federal state level. So you have the Bavarian high-tech agenda, you have programs like KI Transfer Plus, which is AI Transfer Plus. So quite a few things happened there, but it really started in 2018. On the academic side, I think there are, well, from my perspective, two major associations or initiatives. One is the DFKI, which is the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, which was established in 1988, which is very, very old and established organization in terms of AI, but it's really kind of a distributed research network that is dedicated to research on artificial intelligence. And then there's the Cyber Valley in Baden-Württemberg that started in 2016 with a kind of from Tübingen area and the Max Planck institutes there, also a kind of a research ecosystem really dedicated to AI. On the private side, Applied AI actually started in 2017, so 1 year before there was this AI strategy. Then we have the KI Bundesverband, that's kind of a national association on AI in 2018. And we have AI for Germany, which is also kind of a network that started in 2019. I want to explain a little bit about how these things tie together and where we are right now. So, on the public side, the AI strategy in Germany consists of these kind of 12 blocks. There is a part that focuses on research and excellence in research and AI, a part that focuses on innovation, on transfer, that means from academia to the industry, some startup support, some topics about how AI will affect the labor market and overall kind of people in the society, then how to attract experts in AI to Germany, AI in public services and public institutions, a topic around data availability, then some legal and regulatory topics to help improve the uptake of AI, a large part on standardization, international cooperations, and communications to the public. So as you can see, the overall AI strategy is a pretty comprehensive one with all these different parts. And in all these different parts, quite a few activities happened in the past years. So I would like to particularly go into a few topics, especially on the innovation transfer and the startup side. But there's also I put here the official side of the German AI strategy. You can look it up and you can get quite some resources about what's happening in these specific topics. On top of that, there are two larger activities in Germany from the public side. There is the platform Lernende Systeme, which is more or less a group of national experts on AI that really collects some resources and knowledge around AI and writes also some own white papers and creates support tools. What you can see here is a list of examples of AI applications from medium-sized companies, from academia, but that should help organizations to simply understand what you can do with artificial intelligence. And then there is the other topic that's called Mittelstand Digital, which is consisting of 17 competence centers that are more or less the first contact point for information. There are 50 AI trainers, and the idea is that these are the main contact points for anyone in the industry that is interested in AIs. They could go there and they get some kind of first-hand information about artificial intelligence in Germany. So as you can see, there is kind of this federal state system, and the idea is now to connect the different actors in Germany to provide information to help as many as possible to get started on AI. On the private side, there are three main activities that has been established in the past years. Applied AI, which is kind of my organization. I'm the managing director there, and I talk about this. It's a consortium of, it's an activity of a organization called UnternehmerTUM, but it consists of several private organizations to drive the adoption of state-of-the-art AI in the industry and society. The KI Bundesverband is the association of the German AI startups to represent their interests in Germany, but also in Europe. And there is AI for Germany, which is a network of AI initiatives for different federal states in Germany. So the idea is that the ones in Bavaria work with the ones in Baden-Württemberg, in North Rhine-Westphalia and Saxony and so on, so that it's not a competition within the regions of Germany, but really contributing and working together. So that is kind of the main organizations, network, startup ecosystem, and private industry and organizations. And now let me emphasize a little bit what we do with the industry, because I think also in that context, that's a really interesting topic. So what we built with Applied AI is the idea of Europe's largest initiative for the application of cutting-edge AI to really shape Europe's innovative power as a trusted enabler and innovator. And the question is now how we do that, because what we see ultimately was that there's so much research going on worldwide, globally, that it's about how to get this research into application in the industry. And we started this, as initially said, a couple of years ago, and are now a group of about 50 people, quite a few organizations as partners, more than 50. We worked with several hundred companies, with several hundred partners together. We are now globally active in OECD and the Global Partnership on AI. And we more or less do three things. One is trainings, trainings from board members to the general public, with several tens of thousands of people in our training so far. Like strategic support of organizations, where we, on the one hand, distribute knowledge and white papers to whoever wants to use it, but we also actively help organizations on the AI strategies, and we do also engineering support. And with the solution partners, we connect organizations together. We don't count that, we don't know, but several hundreds of these connections have been made. On the other hand, if it's about the core knowledge of the company, then we help them to build up that knowledge internally, and we help them to co-develop that type of AI applications within these organizations. And for that, we split it into these two parts. So one is this partnership approach, and partnership meaning organizations having us as a sparring partner. So for any questions they can approach us for anything they need to get in terms of tools or resources. They can approach us, and we are this type of sparring partner that really helps them advance in AI. On the other hand, the innovation part is really to build AI-first products with these companies and organizations to kind of build up the knowledge within these companies and to establish the state-of-the-art knowledge and also kind of the competence within the companies to continue to work there. How do we do that? It's based on what we call the AI journey. And I think that's kind of one of the most important aspects here now. And I want to emphasize a couple of aspects. So what we do is we categorize organizations in 5 different categories. We say there are quite a few, and that's the majority of the companies, also in Germany, that have not started with AI, especially the smaller ones, but also some of the larger ones simply did not start. And it's actually about them risking their competitiveness. There are quite a few, and that's kind of the next big chunk of organizations that's on this experimental level. So they really work on first prototypes, they experiment with AI. They maybe have a little bit already established, but they are stuck at the POC level. And it's really hard to get from a POC into application. Then at the practitioner level, and here we talk about most of the leading companies, so I would put them into that practitioner part. It's about organizations that have some AI applications at place implemented, and they now start to systematically implement more and more use cases. It actually is about the first value creation, but because it's quite a bit of manual work involved in that and supervision of the AI components in the organizations, the value is more or less limited. Professional stage is then really to have AI into production, to use it broadly, stable, reliably in the organization, and it's about the sustainable value creation. And then you have the shaper, the AI first companies that really reshape whole markets, and they are kind of leading appliers of artificial intelligence. And now the interesting thing is, if you look at what we do also from a government perspective, it's really about the first information and the uptake of AI and the information and maybe some prototyping. And there I put the 2 larger ones here, Mittelstand Digital and Platform Lernende Systeme. They are focusing on giving information to these organizations. But if you read national AI strategies, and if you read also the German AI strategy, it says that we want to become leaders in AI. So there needs to be something that helps organizations to become leading. That means in this professional or shaper stage. And that's where most of the organizations, and again, also the very large ones in Germany, are currently struggling with and working on to really get to professionally use AI. Also, if you look at the AI regulatory framework, that from the European Commission, it comes in and demands that organizations have reliable processes, that they have full reproducibility and transparency about how to use AI, which is an infrastructure measure for these professional users of AI. So everything pushes there, and what we now want to establish with our partners in Applied AI is to build that kind of ecosystem that gets you from these first levels of applying AI to really professionally using AI. And that, I think, distinguishes us from quite a few initiatives also worldwide in terms of how we collaborate with the organizations to systematically improve their AI maturity to get to these high levels of AI maturity. And that means to really change the whole curve. So if you look at something like that from as a rough draft, most of the companies are at this level 0. It's about moving the whole curve towards higher levels of AI maturity, certainly with most of them at this level 3, the professional users of AI. But that's kind of our goal. And we do that through a couple of services like assessment tools, like white papers, like the conferences, like trainings, also the tools that we really develop together with the organizations, and AI labs and platforms to help them get started on AI. How do we do that? That's maybe also from an ecosystem perspective. The organizations we work with, it's most of the industry in Germany, plenty of more than here visible. It cuts across all different industries. So it's from telco to insurance to medtech to healthcare to gas or resources, high tech, mobility, and so on. It consists also of the leading partners in the technology area that collaborate with us. It also consists of the leading kind of ministries in Germany that work with us on these topics, but also organizations like IEEE from an international perspective. On the international side, there's quite a broad ecosystem we collaborate with, and then there are quite a few academic partners that also help us to kind of get the talent and the latest research into this type of ecosystem. How do we do that? We created what we call the AI Strategy House because AI is much more than a technology. You need to start from the ambition of where you are in the organization and what you actually want to do. How committed are you as an organization to develop AI? Then it's about AI use cases. So how do I understand them? How do I get to know them? What of those do I need to do myself as an organization? Where do I really need to build up competence internally? And when should I rather partner with organizations and buy existing solutions from the market? And then ultimately the portfolio management of AI use cases. Enabling factors, meaning where is AI in the organization? Is it in the CIO office? Is it a strategic topic in R&D? So there are plenty of options. It's about governance and liability topics and this whole regulatory approach that's all covered in this kind of organizational aspect. Then expertise, meaning who is the one who's working on those topics? How do I get the expertise on the board level to how to attract talent and also retain talent? Culture, meaning there is this black box system that works probabilistically. How can I accept different changes in the system from a personal perspective? And how do I make people accept AI solutions overall in the organization? Then data, I think that's pretty clear. Technology is hardware and software infrastructure, and ecosystem is the kind of with whom I work with. On the execution side, you have the process of how to develop AI solutions from the beginning to really operationalization and maintenance. And these things you now can put on this dynamic perspective on this AI journey. So you have this house, which is kind of the structure, and the structural perspective you can put on this dynamic perspective. And now you have different challenges in ambition, in the organization, in expertise, depending on the maturity level where you are. And what this now means is that if you assess yourself where you are, you really can systematically advance on this journey, because it's really important that you consider all those factors. Otherwise, you won't be able to really successfully implement AI. And what we now do in this ecosystem is develop best practices for each of those challenges and provide them to the organizations. So what we built is kind of this accelerator system for organizations to mature on the AI journey. And that's in this consortium approach within all these organizations. So that's how we conceptualize AI. And one thing I want to emphasize is we developed this, as I mentioned it quickly, this maturity assessment where you are, that's now being rolled out with several other national initiatives in Europe. But there we are also very open to also broaden this and make it accessible for anyone who's interested into following that type of maturity model, to have a systematic approach how to rate organizations where they are, build benchmarks on different countries, but also on different organizations in the same industries. But I think that's what we have seen so far, the best practice approach to really systematically help whole industries to advance in AI. So that was a very quick run through in 20 minutes on on what we're doing in Germany, what's our approach, maybe going back in the beginning. So as said, if that's the national strategy, I really looked at these topics of innovation and transfer only from a private perspective, not from the government perspective. But I think that's how this all kind of ties together in really fulfilling the AI strategy in Germany. And with that, happy to answer any questions or giving back to you.
Thank you. Actually, what I remember after this presentation is the ambitions part. And I happily saw that you produced the white papers and all this research activity. Then you had 44 solutions, and out of this came 2 products. I guess the most important part is that part on the economy side. You're a very huge exporter and a big economy in Europe, the biggest economy in Europe. So I guess that's the clue.
Yeah, I think that, so the 2 actually are on top. So 2 products are really kind of is separate. The 44 are then kind of continued within the organization. So I think there's quite a bit happening. But actually the largest is a startup called Village Data Analytics that really now kind of structures the infrastructure investments in Africa based on satellite data for electrification of countries. They work with the World Bank together and the ESA on doing that. So it's a pretty nice example of what you can actually do with AI. And that was also used in the COVID crisis to say, where are the hospitals that need electrification for all the specific devices and so on. So I think, yes, the idea is we need to produce something, there need to be output. And the interesting thing is, and I don't know why also national strategies don't focus much more on that. If I want to become leading, you need to somehow help organizations to get to that leader stage. It's not enough to stop at information. You need to have this support system to the end of that strategy. And I think that's, for some reason, also, if you look at different other national strategies and countries, it's something that's missing in quite a few of those.
The other important detail was about the ecosystem. And now I'll turn to our guests in Istanbul, the Turkish AI leaders, to build our story, and we want to build it on your expertise and other foreign experiences. So thank you very much, Andreas.
Thank you.
Now we'll go on with the Turkish side. See you again. Bye.
See you. Bye.